Hey future York students!
I'm Sidel.
And I'm Neetha.
And welcome to the Faculty of Liberal Arts and Professional Studies Program Chat Series.
We want you to know that here in LA&PS, you will study what you love and learn what you need.
In this chat, you'll be hearing from future professors as well as current students about the program.
What it has to offer you, like internship opportunities.
And what your first year in the program may look like.
Alright, should we get started?
Yeah, let's get started.
Enjoy, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Liberal Arts and Professional Studies program chats. My name is Adam. I'm the Recruitment and Liaison Officer for the faculty, and I'm going to be hosting our chat about a special program we have here at York University, which is our Jewish Studies program. Before we get started, I do want to just take a quick moment to acknowledge the land that York University is on. This meeting is virtual, and because of that, we are not all actually gathered on the same space. York's land acknowledgement might not represent the territory you are currently on, and I would ask that if this is the case, that you each take the responsibility to acknowledge the traditional territory that you are on and its current treaty holders. As a member of the York University community, I recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of York University. York University acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Takaranto has been taken care of by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and the Métis. It is now home to many Indigenous people. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. Now I'd like to introduce a very special guest we have with us this morning, Professor David Kaufman from the Jewish Studies program. Good morning, Professor Kaufman.
Good morning, Adam. I'm pleased to be here.
Fantastic. So a lot of our students tuning in are thinking about potentially coming to York for Jewish Studies, and I was wondering if you could just go through a bit about the program and some of the things they can expect.
Well, we're very pleased that anyone watching is curious about Jewish Studies at York. It's really a great place to learn about Jews and Judaism and the rich, fascinating, and really diverse experiences of the Jewish peoples across the globe for the last three millennia and 3,000 years. The program is about this remarkable people scattered across the world who have survived and thrived, living both together and apart from many of the great civilizations of world history, and have contributed in a deeply compelling set of texts and ideas and ways of knowing and learning about being human and being alive in the world. So the program, the Jewish Studies programs, there are actually several of them. They explore the texts and histories and cultures, the sociologies, languages and literatures, and even the fine arts of Jewish people from the biblical times right up to the present. And we examine Jewish interactions with non-Jews over the ages, both cooperative interactions and antagonistic ones. So elements of both cultural symbiosis and the different evolving and changing attitudes towards and images of Jews within various non-Jewish cultures, including, of course, the history of anti-Semitism, which, of course, includes the Holocaust. We offer a few different program options. We offer a major, both one with and without honors or specializations. We have a minor, and we have two different certificate programs, one that's designed for folks interested in becoming Jewish educators, and another that's really for just anyone who's curious to learn about Jews or Judaism and notices or intends to collect 24 credits over the course of their undergraduate years. So these are great ways of adding another compelling line to your CV after graduation, irrespective of your career goals. Students can basically just show their interest on their CV and perhaps unconventional areas of human knowledge on their transcripts that gain a little bit of spice on their CVs, which is always a good thing. What else? Let's see. Our courses are full of students from every walk of life from York's incredibly diverse student body. And since many students enrolled in our classes are taking only a couple of Jewish Studies courses as electives, it means that the discussions and the learning inevitably draws out a really wide range of perspectives and are fresh and live and engaging. Among our most popular courses include a general education course that we offer, so a first-year course called the Jewish Experience, which offers a broad overview of Jewish religion and history, taught mostly through reading original sources, although in English translation, of course. We offer a couple different Holocaust-related courses, one in history, one in literature, and one that shares a border with our children's studies programs at York. And then there's a great course called Church, Mosque, Synagogue that puts the three great Abrahamic traditions into dialogue. This is also amazing, as is our third-year core course for majors and minors called Torah and Tradition. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Well, the programs are attached to York's world-class Israel and Golda Koshitsky Center for Jewish Studies, which is a research cluster at York that brings together students with graduate students, members of faculty from nearly a dozen different departments in the university who share some interest in some aspect of Jewish studies, and brings in researchers and scholars from all around the globe who participate in seminars and symposia and talks and conferences to which undergraduates are warmly welcomed. So the center can help Jewish studies students, majors, minors, certificates, or just enrollments, people who are interested in studying in Israel, let's say for the summer or a whole semester or a year. And it has a number of awards and prizes for undergraduate students for good papers and for overall excellence. We have an experiential education component, including funding for traveling abroad courses to Israel, to Europe, other places, some great links to the public history certificate program in the history department, and a kind of good mix of regular term and summer courses, and then in-person and remote courses. And finally, maybe I'll just add that in terms of career, Jewish studies majors have gone on to careers in a pretty wide range of areas, including communal service, both in the Jewish communal world, but also in the general world, careers in politics, in journalism, museum work, in doing public policy and social work, and education. And a lot of our students have gone on to degrees that just leverage their critical and intellectual skills, including law and business and finance. And some have even carried on actually with more advanced Jewish studies type careers, like have trained to become professors themselves or rabbis. So there's lots of different ways to go, sort of Jewish directions and non-Jewish directions.
That's a really excellent overview of the program. Thanks so much, Professor Kaufman. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about some of the popular questions we get from students.
Sure.
So one of the things that I would like to clarify for students is a little bit more about the study of Judaism and the Jewish Studies program. So when you think about where the study was 20 or 50 years ago, how has that developed and how is it continuing to develop? Like, what direction is the field moving in?
Sure. Well, the Jewish Studies has expanded an incredible amount over the last 50 years. In fact, there was no Jewish studies in the university 50 years ago, although there were programs, there were courses you could do in some of the elite universities that were really focused on religion and the classical texts of Judaism. And since the field has really exploded, it's spread into many, many different disciplines. And the focus has been, I'd say, less on the kind of core texts of the Jewish canonical texts of the tradition, although there remains a very strong interest in this. But Jewish studies scholars have expanded their attention to include texts that aren't canonical texts, like novels and films and museum exhibits and television shows and that kind of thing, cultural texts, but also things that aren't about text at all. So even in the widest sense of the term. So economic history and business history and habits and studies about race and culture and racialization or gender and sexuality. There's also been an increasing focus on interactions between Jews and non-Jews in this huge variety of states and societies in which Jews found themselves living. So you kind of always get to learn both about a minority, but also about the majority host culture around them and how a minority can kind of maintain its difference, but also participate in with more or less tension with the world around it. I'd also just add that Jewish studies draws from really all of the great intellectual traditions and tools from the modern university, and then applies them both to the study of this one curious people, which is, not quite a religion, not quite a culture, not quite an ethnicity or a race, but kind of a strange mix of them all, and sometimes forces those intellectual traditions and tools to have to modify themselves to better explain a world that includes outsiders, a world that includes people like Jews, folks who don't fit into the neat categories of the world. So Jewish studies is both draws from the great intellectual traditions of the humanities and social science, but also gives something back to them because Jews are good to think with, a good case study, because they have to challenge a lot of the basic categories.
Thank you. That is absolutely fascinating, and I hope that excites some of our viewers about the study of Judaism. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit on a broader scale. So a lot of students are comparing programs. So I'm not going to ask you to speak about the programs at other universities, but if you could maybe talk about what makes our York program in Jewish Studies unique or special, I think students would really appreciate that.
Well, York is the oldest university in Canada to offer Jewish Studies courses. We're the first to offer history Holocaust courses, for example, which is one of many firsts. As I mentioned somewhere off the top, the program is also intimately connected with the Center for Jewish Studies, which lots of smaller programs don't have. So they don't have a kind of institutional network to support the study and programs. And this matters a lot for undergraduate students because it means that both the quality of the faculty is very high and that there's a lot of regular activity that's really wonderfully stimulating. And it's aimed both at experts in the field, but also to the broader community, which in Toronto has been very interested and very supportive of relevant public programmings. So all of this kind of accrues to the benefit of the undergraduate students, both directly and indirectly. I'd also add that we're one of the few programs in Canada that can still offer a pretty broad range of Jewish studies courses. So whereas a lot of other schools in Canada have only 1 or 2 faculty members, we have 8 core members and up to 24 other affiliate members who kind of touch on Jewish subjects in their research. So you can learn a bit about the Bible in its original Near Eastern and Canaanite contexts, but you can also learn about Jews in the medieval period, in the Islamic world, about modern Jewish life over recent decades, and really cover a pretty broad scope of Jewish experiences.
That's really interesting. Could we maybe dive into that a little bit and talk about some of those specialties of these faculty members and any achievements they may have that students would be interested in hearing about?
Sure. Well, my faculty colleagues in Jewish Studies are really smart, and they're really supportive people, and they're really, approachable, kind humans who care about their students. And I think this is because they love what they research. But they also believe that it's really important to expose young adults to serious ideas, to serious debates and insights that we humans can get from focusing our attention on Jewish life or religion or literature or history. We have Carl Ehrlich, who actually I should say in general that our professors have held many prestigious positions in other universities as guest researchers, as research fellows, books that have won a long list of awards, have played roles in the leadership of humanities and digital humanities and Jewish studies academic worlds. So they're very experienced as a whole, and they are sought after for speaking engagements around the world. So we have one colleague, Professor Ehrlich, who focuses on the Bible and ancient Israelite civilization. Another colleague, Sarah Horowitz, who focuses mostly on Israeli and Holocaust literatures. My colleague, Kalman Weiser, does Eastern European modernity and teaches both about the Holocaust and Zionism. Ahuva Shulman teaches modern Hebrew. Randall Schnur, contemporary Jewish sociology. And we have a faculty colleague, Laura Weisman, in the Faculty of Education, and a brand new colleague who's starting next year or this coming year, the 22-23 year, who focuses on Jewish-Muslim relations. I myself focus on North American Jewish history. And then I think, as I mentioned, there are lots of other faculty members across the university, different programs from art history to politics and from music to languages and literatures, whose area share a border with Jewish studies and who sometimes teach this kind of curriculum.
Wow, that's really impressive. I've had a lot of these discussions. That's probably one of the most impressive lists we've had for faculty members. I think that's a lot of information. I think students have, I hope, learned a lot about our Jewish Studies program. I think as sort of a final question, I get asked a lot by parents and by students if there's anything they could read that might prime themselves for the coming year. Do you have any book recommendations that an eager student looking forward to Jewish Studies might pick up over the summer to get themselves ready?
Oh my God, reading is so good. That's a great question. Although I'm slightly hesitant to recommend book because there's so many different areas of Jewish studies, honestly, that it's better to have a kind of specific, like, is it modern or is it super ancient? Is it about religion or is it? So maybe what I'll do is let me type out my email in the chat here, and anyone can write to me. And we can chat about what you're interested in. I can give you like a good introductory text. But I'd say in general, and maybe it's a little bit non-professorial for me to say because we like books, but I would say just listen to some podcasts, search them up. There's a ton of great Jewish studies podcasts that are kind of pretty good, high level, but very understandable intellectual content. One called Adventures in Jewish Studies. There's another called Identity Crisis. And a third called Jewish History Matters. And maybe if you see some of the particular episodes that look like they speak to you because they speak to a specific interest, then that might be a good thing to start just to get the noodle warmed up. And we look forward to learning with you. And please feel free to be in touch if you want to continue this conversation.
Hope you enjoyed the program chat, everyone.
If you have any questions about our LA&PS programs, be sure to visit our website to learn more.
And make sure to stay in touch with us for a chance to win a $100 gift card at the York Bookstore. The link to our website is in the description box below.
You can also send your questions to us, the LA&PS student recruitment team.
We'd love to hear from you, so send us an email at goyork@yorku.ca.
And we look forward to seeing you all on campus next year.
Bye.
Bye.